The evening started perfectly. I was driving down Fifth Avenue in my Tesla Model S, feeling completely content. Tonight was Lai's graduation party, held at this ridiculously fancy downtown Manhattan venue that had cost me an absolute fortune, more than most people earn in a year. $48,000 for one night, all premium everything, because my wife had champagne tastes. And me? I was the fool who paid for it without blinking. Honestly, I'd have paid double just to see her happy, to see her face light up when she walked into that beautiful room. The jazz trio she'd chosen was probably tuning up right now, and the caterers were putting the final touches on those absurd gold leaf appetizers she just had to have. It's a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, she told me, batting those big, gorgeous brown eyes. We need it to be perfect, babe. And like the completely besotted idiot I was, I just nodded and handed over my Black American Express. Traffic was eerily light for a Friday night in Manhattan, which should have been my first sign that the universe was about to throw a curveball. Usually, getting anywhere downtown during rush hour is a nightmare, like navigating an obstacle course while under fire. But tonight, it was smooth sailing, almost unsettlingly quiet. I pulled up to the venue, and that's when a cold dread started to settle in my chest. I knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. The place was pitch black. No lights spilling onto the sidewalk, no warm glow from inside, no music, no laughter, just shadows and silence. There was no valet, no sign of life. My stomach twisted itself into a knot, that horrible feeling you get when you realize something has irrevocably broken. I parked and walked up to the main entrance, my expensive leather shoes echoing loudly against the pavement. It sounded like a death knell. The doors were bolted shut, not just closed, but locked up tight, like the place hadn't been used in days. I pressed my face right up against the cold glass, cupping my hands to look past the street glare. It was empty. Completely, totally, chillingly empty. Before my brain could even process the horror of being stood up at a party I paid for, my thumb was already pressing Lai's speed dial. It went straight to voicemail. Her voice message sounded annoyingly bright, almost too cheerful. Hi, you've reached Lai. I'm probably too busy being awesome to answer right now, so leave a message and I'll get back to you. Even her recorded voice felt like a punch to the gut now. It was dripping with that condescending arrogance I'd managed to ignore for years. I tried again, and again. On the fourth try, she finally picked up. Oh, hey babe, she chirped. Her voice sounded light, even musical, but in the background, I could hear it. Laughter, glasses clinking, the unmistakable sounds of a party in full swing. Lai, where are you? I'm at the venue, and it's completely dark. The doors are locked. I could barely keep the tremor out of my voice. A small pause, then that laugh. The one I used to think was so endearing, but now sounded absolutely grating. Oh, the party ended like 2 hours ago. I guess I didn't want you there. The words slammed into me like a physical blow. A full-on, gut-wrenching shock. What do you mean you didn't want me there? I paid for this whole thing. I know, and it was beautiful. Everyone had a wonderful time. The jazz trio was perfect. Great choice, by the way. Her voice was casual, completely devoid of any remorse, as if she were commenting on a pleasant evening out. Lai, this is insane. You can't just... Click. She hung up. She actually hung up on me. I stood there on the cold sidewalk, staring at my phone, feeling a level of personal betrayal I'd never known. The city just kept moving. Cars sped past, people strolled by with their happy Friday night plans, and my entire world had just shattered. That's when I made the mistake that sealed the night's fate. I opened Instagram. There it was, posted just 45 minutes earlier. Lai, in that stunning gold champagne dress I bought her last month. She was radiant, glowing with happiness. And she was kissing Dominic Kane. Dominic, her senior partner at the firm, the one whose name had been in my ear constantly for months. Oh, Dominic thinks this, and Dominic is such a brilliant legal mind. I'd silently cursed his name 1,000 times. But the caption beneath the photo was what truly broke me. Couldn't have done it without you. My sponsor through law school. Red Heart Best Couple Law School Graduation. New beginnings. My sponsor. I had sacrificed for her. I paid every single cent of tuition for 3 years. I covered her rent, her ridiculously expensive car, her shopping sprees. I was her walking, talking ATM. And she was thanking him, her new boyfriend, for something I had done. The man who had probably never bought her anything more expensive than a fancy coffee. My hand squeezed the phone so hard the case groaned. The rush of blood in my ears was deafening. This wasn't just cheating. This was public, premeditated humiliation. Everyone who mattered to her, her friends, her firm, half the legal community, they all thought he was her financial backer, her sugar daddy. The comments were pouring in. A tidal wave of heart emojis and congratulations. One comment twisted the knife even deeper. Finally, we were wondering when you two would make it official. You're perfect together. Finally, how long had this been an open secret? I walked away from the locked, dark venue. There was nothing left there for me. Nothing left to salvage. As I got back into my car, the hurt was still a raw, burning agony. But beneath it, something cold and hard was forming. It was a terrifying, calculating clarity. She thought this was clever. She thought she could just erase me from her narrative and replace me with him, as if I were a deleted footnote. But my darling wife had no idea what she was messing with. I don't just spend money, I invest it. Every dollar, every transaction, every decision is meticulously documented, tracked, and recorded. And Dominic Kane? Our connection was about to become the single, most painful lesson of her life. The drive home was a dark, raging blur. I barely registered the traffic. I was running on pure adrenaline and cold fury. Carlos, my doorman, took one look at me and asked if everything was all right. I just told him I was living the dream. A dead, emotionless reply that even I heard as a warning. In the elevator, I stared at my reflection. My tie was crooked, my hair a mess. My eyes were hollow, almost vacant. But the moment I stepped into my apartment, my beautiful, controlled, organized apartment, that cold resolve solidified. I poured myself 3 large fingers of Macallan 25, the good stuff, and marched straight to my home office. This room was my fortress, my command center. Everything was precise, immaculate, and under my total control. I pulled out the black leather master assets folder from my desk drawer. It was like opening a time capsule of my own foolish generosity. Inside were 3 years of meticulous financial records. Every tuition payment, every wire transfer, every credit card statement, the full financial record of our life together. I never understood this about me. When I love, I'm all in. When I financially support, I document every penny. I keep records. I cover my ass. And now, that meticulousness was about to become her undoing. The tuition payments alone, the rent, the car, the allowance, it was a staggering amount. I had been her personal ATM, and she had repaid me with public shame and betrayal. But here was the key, the twist she couldn't possibly have foreseen. Months ago, she'd convinced me to help Dominic. He was struggling to get his legal consulting firm off the ground, she said. He's brilliant, babe, but he just needs someone to believe in him, she pleaded. So, I had met with Dominic. His business plan, honestly, was fantastic. He had a real vision for disrupting corporate legal services. The problem was, he needed serious capital. I gave him everything. Full seed capital, operating expenses, office space, payroll, the works. In return, I demanded 90% ownership and full voting control. Dominic got 10% and the title of CEO. It was a sweetheart deal for him. He signed the airtight paperwork without hesitation. Just like that, I became the silent, majority owner of what was now a $157 million company, Kane Dynamics. The irony was perfect, almost suffocating. He got all the public accolades, the visionary headlines, the prestige. But I held the strings. Now, looking at that photo of them kissing, I realized I didn't just have hurt feelings. I had catastrophic leverage. I pulled up the private equity exchange. Kane Dynamics was valued at $174.4 million. My 90% stake was worth about $157 million. And I had 3 major acquisition offers pending. The company my wife's new boyfriend thought he owned, the company that was the foundation of their entire illicit relationship, belonged to me. I finished my scotch. The cold fury had set in. I wanted to play games. I was about to show her the difference between playing house and running a business. This was going to be played on my terms, with devastating precision. It was 2:47 a.m., and I was staring at the cliff edge, the cursor hovering. I was past the point of return. The last 4 hours had been spent meticulously tracing every financial thread that connected me to Lai's perfect, fake life. I had to proceed methodically. I wouldn't build a multi-million-dollar fortune by making reckless, emotional moves. I started with the trivial, the painful little cuts that would bleed her dry. The graduation party vendors. I logged into my banking portal and initiated immediate payment cancellations. The venue's check? Stopped, with a formal dispute filed citing a material breach of contract because Mr. Thompson wasn't even invited. The caterers, the musicians, all payments reversed. I imagined the phone calls that would start at 9 a.m. sharp. Venue managers panicking, caterers realizing the check they deposited was worthless. The Yush trio getting a nasty surprise next week. It was grim, but satisfying. Next, Lai's Corporate American Express. This was one of my favorite cuts. An authorized user account on my main business line, used for $15,000 a month worth of designer shopping, expensive facials, and luxury gym memberships. I canceled it with 2 clicks. Her whole seamless existence, her Uber rides, her Amazon habit, her coffee runs, was about to grind to a halt. Then came the big withdrawal, her final semester tuition reimbursement. She'd just been reimbursed over $37,000, deposited into the joint account I controlled. I transferred every single cent into my personal account, and then closed the joint account permanently. By the time she checked her balance, the money would be gone, and the account would simply cease to exist. But the main event was Kane Dynamics. I pulled up the private equity exchange again. The company was valued at $174.4 million. I looked at the 3 acquisition offers. The third one, from Blackstone Legal Partners, was offering $195 million for an immediate buyout. They specifically wanted to acquire the company to get Dominic, completely unaware that he was disposable. The choice was easy. I clicked Accept Terms on the Blackstone offer. The transaction would finalize in 48 hours, locking in my $195 million profit. By Monday morning, Dominic would walk into his office, thinking he was the hotshot CEO, only to be greeted by Blackstone representatives explaining the new corporate structure. The people who paid $195 million for his company would have no loyalty to him whatsoever. My laptop flashed a confirmation. Transaction accepted. I finished the last of the scotch. I was $195 million richer. And I had just set a time bomb under the feet of the two people who thought they had made a fool of me. Phase 1 was complete. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating like a trapped animal. It was an alarm clock of panic. I knew exactly what was happening. The initial shockwaves of the financial chaos I'd unleashed. My screen was a fireworks display of notifications, dozens of missed calls, frantic texts, and voicemails. But first, coffee. I'm a creature of habit. I made a perfect cup of my single-origin Ethiopian in the expensive machine she always mocked. The coffee was rich and smooth, and I needed it to brace myself. I settled into my armchair and finally looked at the phone. 156 missed calls. The sheer volume was staggering. Lai's 47 text messages were a dramatic progression from confusion to meltdown. They started politely. "Babe, my card was declined at the pharmacy. Could you check on that?" They ramped up to anger. "This is ridiculous. I need my medication and my card isn't working." And they peaked in full-blown panic. "Call me right now. Something is seriously wrong with all of my accounts, and I need you to fix this immediately." I could trace the exact moment she realized her financial life had been personally shut down. Dominic's texts were more controlled, befitting a lawyer, but no less desperate. "Michael, there seems to be an issue with the Kane Dynamics operating accounts. Please call me ASAP." Then, a couple of hours later, "Michael, this is urgent. Our payroll system is showing errors and several vendors are reporting payment issues. We need to resolve this immediately." But the voicemails were pure, unadulterated theater. Voicemail 12 was from the venue coordinator, her voice tight, with professional anxiety. "Mr. Thompson, this is Sandra from the Crystal Ballroom. We need to discuss the payment reversal that occurred overnight. Our accounting department is showing a significant discrepancy, and we have vendors asking questions about their payments. Please call me as soon as possible." Voicemail 23 was from Dominic's CFO, Brad. He sounded like he hadn't slept or stopped smoking since midnight. "Mr. Thompson, this is Brad Henley from Kane Dynamics. We have a serious problem with our operating capital, and Dominic mentioned you might be able to help clear up some banking issues. The board is meeting in emergency session, and we really need to get this sorted out before the market opens." An emergency board meeting on a Saturday morning. That's the sound of a life being destroyed. I savored it. Voicemail 38 was the climax. Lai's voice was completely frantic, unhinged. "You son of a bitch. I know you're doing this on purpose. You can't just steal my money because your feelings got hurt. I have bills to pay and a life to live, and you have no right to just destroy everything because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Call me right now, damn it, or I swear to God." The message cut off. Midlife crisis. She thought this was some kind of emotional breakdown I was having? I was on voicemail 45 when the doorbell rang. I had been so lost in the digital chaos that I'd missed the building calls. I walked to the door and peered through the peephole. I half expected to see Lai standing there, ready for a fight. Instead, it was Maya Torres, Lai's personal assistant. Poor Maya looked utterly defeated, like she'd been put through an emotional meat grinder. Her perfect hair was pulled back messily. She was wearing the clothes from the night before, clinging to her phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. I opened the door, leaning against the frame with my coffee. "Maya, this is unexpected. Don't you usually get weekends off?" "Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry to bother you this early. But," she paused, looking around nervously. "Can I come in? There's a situation." I stepped aside. Maya was a good person, efficient and honest about Lai's ridiculous demands. If anyone deserved to stay out of the blast radius of my revenge, it was her. She followed me in but refused my offer of coffee, shaking her head faintly. "I don't even know where to begin," she sighed, collapsing onto the couch like a puppet whose strings had been cut. "Everything is falling apart." "Define everything," I said, settling back, watching her with detached curiosity. "The graduation afterparty got shut down halfway through last night because the venue's check bounced. People were dancing when security walked in and told everyone to leave. Lai was absolutely mortified. Some of the firm's partners were there, and they watched her get escorted out." I nodded slowly, doing a little private cheer in my mind. "Embarrassing, yes. But that's not the worst of it," Maya hurried on. "This morning, Kane Dynamics' payroll system collapsed. Completely. No one got paid. The accounting software is a mess of error messages, and half the staff can't use their company credit cards." "Sounds like a bad IT day," I suggested, taking a sip of coffee. "Mr. Thompson," she looked at me with exhausted exasperation, "Dominic's board is in emergency session. They're talking about outside auditors. There are rumors flying. Hostile takeover, financial investigation. It's chaos. That's quite a leap from a payroll glitch. And Lai, Maya whispered, lowering her voice. Lai is losing it. Her bank accounts are frozen, her credit cards are useless, and she can't reach you. She's calling everyone she knows trying to understand what's happening, but nobody has answers. She showed me her phone, 17 missed calls from Lai in the last hour. She sent me here to find you. She's scared, Mr. Thompson. Really scared. She keeps saying something terrible has happened, and you're the only one who can fix it. I placed my coffee cup down. I adopted an expression of mild, innocent concern. Well, Maya, that does sound like a difficult situation for her. So you'll help? The desperate hope in her voice was almost painful to hear. Help with what exactly? I asked. I'm just a guy who woke up to 156 missed calls on a Saturday. It sounds like Lai and her friend are having business problems that have absolutely nothing to do with me. Maya stared at me for a long time. I could practically see the gears turning in her smart, tired mind. She was piecing together the careful neutrality in my tone, the closed accounts, the timing of the board meeting. This isn't a coincidence, is it? She said, very quietly. Maya, I said, getting up and moving toward the door. I think you should probably get back to work. Sounds like your boss is going to need all the help she can get today. After Maya left, looking completely shell-shocked, like she'd just been given a terrifying vision of the future, I poured another coffee and returned to my desk. The morning's entertainment had been morbidly delightful, but now it was time for the actual business. The serious, legal kind of business. The kind that would make corporate lawyers swoon over the precision of the terms. I pulled out a sheet of my personal stationery, heavy cream-colored paper, my name embossed in dark blue ink. The kind of formal correspondence that says, "You are already losing." I called it setting the right tone. Most people deliver ultimatums wrong. They scream, they get emotional, they make threats they can't back up. A truly effective ultimatum should read like a contract. It's a deal where one party holds every single card. I cracked my knuckles. 15 years of drafting investment agreements prepared me perfectly for this document. 2. Lai Thompson and Dominic Kane. From Michael Thompson. Subject: Terms for resolution of current financial disruptions. Date: today's date. The undersigned acknowledges that recent financial irregularities have created inconveniences for both parties mentioned above. In the interest of resolving these matters expeditiously and avoiding further complications, the following terms are proposed. I paused, savoring the opening. Dry, clinical, completely free of any emotion. No mention of betrayal, humiliation, or illicit kisses. Just financial irregularities and inconveniences. As if I hadn't just watched their world burn. Term 1. Public acknowledgement. Mrs. Lai Thompson will issue a public statement, acknowledging that her law school education was fully funded by Michael Thompson. This statement will specifically name Michael Thompson as the sole financial sponsor and correct any previous public statements suggesting alternative sources of funding. The statement will be substantially identical to the draft provided as Exhibit A. I drafted Exhibit A, Statement of Correction. I want to publicly acknowledge and thank my husband, Michael Thompson, for his complete financial support throughout my law school journey. My recent social media posts incorrectly suggested that others had sponsored my education, and I apologize for any confusion this may have caused. Michael's generous support made my legal career possible, and I'm grateful for his investment in my future. Short, sweet, and absolutely devastating. The legal community thrives on gossip. This correction would be the talk of every cocktail party for months. Term 2. Executive resignation. Mr. Dominic Kane will tender his resignation from all positions at Kane Dynamics, effective immediately. Mr. Kane will waive any claim to severance, stock options, or other compensation. Mr. Kane will cooperate fully with transition activities as directed by the company's new ownership structure. That last part was delicious. Dominic would be racking his brain over what new ownership structure meant. He'd find out soon enough. Term 3. Marital asset protection. Mrs. Lai Thompson hereby waives any and all claims to marital property, business interests, or other assets acquired during the marriage by Michael Thompson. Mrs. Thompson acknowledges that these assets represent the separate property of Michael Thompson and will make no claims for division, alimony, or compensation related to these holdings. This was the core. She could theoretically claim half of everything I owned, but only if she was willing to fight me in court while I continued to dismantle her life. The smart move was to waive her claims and walk away. Term 4. Non-disclosure agreement. Both parties will execute comprehensive non-disclosure agreements prohibiting the public discussion of Michael Thompson's business activities, investment decisions, or personal affairs. I wanted them scrubbed clean from my life. No more mentions on social media, no casual references at networking events. They could build their life together, but they wouldn't use my name, my money, or my status ever again. Term 5. Compliance and consequences. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate legal action seeking full monetary damages, injunctive relief, and the full clawback of all funds previously provided to either party. The stick. Play by my rules, or I would spend the next 5 years of my life and a mountain of my wealth making theirs a legal hell. I printed the document, folded it neatly, and placed it in the manila envelope with the cover letter. They had 24 hours to respond. No negotiation, just a signature, or an indication that they preferred alternative means, which, to be clear, meant total financial annihilation. I called Carlos and had him bring Maya back up. She looked like she was about to faint when she knocked. "Mr. Thompson, Carlos said you wanted to see me again." I handed her the envelope. "I need you to deliver this to Lai in person. Not email, not text. Hand-delivered, with confirmation that she has read and understood the contents." Maya took the envelope with shaking hands. "What is it?" "A solution to her current problems," I said, "along with some very reasonable terms for resolving this situation. She has 24 hours to respond." "And if she doesn't respond?" I gave her my best venture capitalist smile, the one that explains that the company is dissolving. "Then she'll find out that her current problems were just the opening act. The main show hasn't even started yet." I spent the rest of Saturday deliberately doing nothing. I ordered gourmet Thai food. I binge-watched a Netflix series about rich people behaving badly. It felt perfectly appropriate. Around 7 p.m., I opened a bottle of Burlo I'd been saving. I thought I'd open it for a major life event, maybe her first big case win. Instead, I was celebrating the systematic destruction of my cheating wife's financial security. Life is bitterly ironic. The wine was excellent, complex, with a deep flavor that reminded you that good things take time, unlike marriages, which can implode instantly. My phone was silent. Either Lai was still processing the terms, or she was having the kind of catastrophic breakdown that required total social withdrawal. My building's front desk called. "Mr. Thompson, there's a Mrs. Thompson here to see you. Should I send her up?" Of course. She finally worked up the courage. "Send her up, Carlos. Thanks." I didn't move. I didn't change out of my sweatpants. She would have this conversation on my territory, on my terms. 4 minutes later, the knock came. The door opened, and I saw her for the first time since that photo. She looked utterly ravaged. Her usually perfect hair was greasy and unwashed. The expensive makeup was gone, leaving her face pale and puffy from crying. She was still wearing the wrinkled, stained champagne dress from the night before. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I simply stepped aside. I didn't say a word. She walked into the living room as if it were a minefield, looking around the apartment we had shared for 3 years as if she'd never truly seen it. Maybe she was finally noticing whose money had bought every expensive thing in the room. "I got your document," she mumbled, sinking onto the couch where we'd spent so many nights planning our future. A future that died because of an Instagram caption. "I figured as much. That's why you're here instead of at Dominic's." I stood, leaning against the window with my wine glass. I needed her looking up at me. "Michael, I need you to understand something," she started, pulling out her lawyer's calm, rehearsed tone. "What happened at the party? It wasn't supposed to hurt you." I nearly spat out my wine. "It wasn't supposed to hurt me? You threw a party I paid for, didn't invite me, made out with your boss in public, and credited him for my money. And that wasn't supposed to hurt." She ran her hands through her messy hair. "I didn't want you there with my friends." "Your friends." I repeated the words slowly, trying to grasp the sheer audacity. "The friends who ate my food and drank my wine and celebrated your success that I funded? Explain it, Lai? Because it looks like you ran a 3-year con, letting me pay for your entire life while you set up your exit strategy with Dominic." She stood abruptly, pacing toward the kitchen. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. Do you know what it's like to have everyone know my husband pays for everything? That I can't afford anything on my own? So your solution was to pretend your boyfriend paid for everything instead?" "He's not my boyfriend," she snapped defensively. "Dominic and I are just, it's complicated." I laughed, a truly bitter, ugly sound. Complicated? Is that the new term for shoving your tongue down someone's throat at a party and thanking them for sponsoring your education? She faced me, her mask finally cracking. "I made a mistake. I got caught up in the moment and said something stupid on Instagram. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy my entire life." "Destroy your life?" I walked toward her, my voice low and dangerous. "Lie, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped paying for it. There's a crucial difference. You canceled my credit cards. You closed my bank accounts." She was practically screaming. "I can't even buy groceries." "Welcome to adulthood," I said flatly. "Most people have to earn money before they can spend it. Revolutionary, I know." Her face crumpled, and for a fleeting second, I saw the vulnerable girl I had loved. But then the lawyer snapped back. "Those terms you sent me are ridiculous. You can't expect me to publicly humiliate myself just because you're having some kind of what?" I cut her off. "Some kind of reasonable response to being betrayed? Some kind of natural reaction to finding out my wife has been planning her future with another man while I covered the bills." "I never planned anything with Dominic." "Really? Because that Instagram post was quite the plan. Couldn't have done it without you, my sponsor through law school." Heart emoji. Seems like a clear team effort to me. She was fully sobbing now. I just felt overshadowed by you. Like I couldn't have any success that was truly my own. Like everything I accomplished was just because of your money. And so you decided to give Dominic the credit instead. I didn't mean for it to happen like that, but it did happen like that. I looked out the window again. You made every one of those choices lie. You chose to exclude me. You chose to kiss him. You chose to publicly lie about my contribution. And now you face the consequences. She moved close, desperate. Michael, please. I know I screwed up. We can go to therapy. We can work through this. Don't burn everything down. I turned to her. The terms in that envelope are non-negotiable. Sign them, or you will learn what life is like when I am no longer subsidizing it. And if I sign them, then what? Then you and Dominic are free to go build your life together. Just not with my money, and not with my name attached to your new success story. She stared at me, trying to find a flicker of a bluff. There was none. The man who loved her had died that night. The man standing here was a businessman securing his assets. 24 hours, I said. Sign the papers, or find out what the alternative looks like. Monday morning was a cold, sharp shock. I dressed carefully, a precise, expensive suit, Italian shoes. Today wasn't about vengeance. It was about a statement that would echo through the financial world. I arrived at the Kane Dynamics building on Park Avenue. It was one of those gleaming towers that scream success. I walked through the lobby, and the security guard waved me through, still blissfully unaware that I had just sold the entire company. The 32nd floor reception area was thick with nervous energy. Employees whispered in corners, checking their phones. Jessica, the receptionist, was relieved to see me. Mr. Thompson, thank God. Mr. Kane has been trying to reach you all weekend. I'm sure he has. I checked my watch. The board meeting? Yes, sir. Conference room A. Since 7 a.m. The pre-dawn crisis meeting. Perfect. I walked down the hall and saw them through the glass walls of the conference room. 7 people looking absolutely destroyed, surrounded by spreadsheets that looked like disaster reports. Dominic Kane was nowhere to be seen. I knocked once and walked in. 7 pairs of eyes snapped up, filled with frantic hope. Michael, Brad Henley, the CFO, shot out of his seat. Thank God you're here. So I hear. I took the empty seat at the head of the table, Dominic's seat. Where is our fearless leader? Sarah Chun, the head of operations, cleared her throat nervously. Dominic is no longer with the company as of this morning. Resign? I asked, playing ignorant. Security escorted him out about an hour ago, Brad confirmed. He emailed his resignation at 6:47 a.m. Very brief. Very gone. Unfortunate timing, given our current challenges. I opened my briefcase. We need clarity on the financial structure, Michael, Sarah pressed. Our operating accounts are frozen, payroll is overdue, and vendors are calling constantly. And the rumors, Marcus Webb, business development, added, of a hostile takeover. The financial press is asking about ownership changes. I looked around the table at these smart, dedicated people who had built this company. They were just collateral damage. Well, I said, placing the acquisition documents on the table. Blackstone Legal Partners logo was on the top. I have some news that should clarify the situation. As of market close on Friday, I said, watching their stunned faces, I sold my majority stake in Kane Dynamics to Blackstone Legal Partners. They are now the majority shareholder of the company. The silence was total, profound, the sound of their professional lives ending. Brad finally spoke, his voice trembling. Your majority stake, Michael? You only own 15%. I smiled. Actually, Brad, I own 90% of Kane Dynamics. Dominic retained 10% in the CEO title, but I have been the majority shareholder since day one. 90% of the funding, 90% of the capital. It's all documented in the original incorporation papers. Sarah was pale. That's impossible. Dominic built this company. Dominic had the vision. I corrected her. I had the capital. It all came from my personal portfolio. Marcus frantically checked his phone. But why sell to Blackstone? We're profitable. We're growing. Because, I interrupted, my priorities have changed. I am divesting myself from certain business relationships that no longer align with my personal interests. They knew, of course, that this had everything to do with Dominic's sudden disappearance, but they would never know the full, pathetic story of the Instagram post. What does this mean for us? Asked Jennifer Walls, the head of legal affairs. Blackstone representatives will be here this afternoon, I said. They will be conducting one-on-one meetings with all senior staff to evaluate the current organizational structure. In plain English, they were here to decide who to fire and how to dismantle the company to fit their new vision. They paid a premium for Kane Dynamics because they believed they were acquiring Dominic's leadership, I continued. Now that Dominic is no longer here, they'll have to reevaluate their investment. Brad's hands shook uncontrollably. Michael, this company employs 47 people. Families, mortgages, kids in college. You can't just. I can, and I did, I said, standing and closing my briefcase. Blackstone Legal Partners is a reputable firm. I'm confident they will make decisions that are in the best interest of their investment. I walked to the door. For what it's worth, you're all talented professionals. I'm sure you will land on your feet. Then I left them in the smoking ruins of their careers. 2 weeks later, I was in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, watching a 27-year-old coding genius explain her legal tech startup. The irony wasn't lost on me. Back where Dominic had started, but this time, the investment felt right. The space was raw, exposed brick, concrete floors, cheap industrial lighting. It was messy but alive. It had energy, focused intensity. Legal research, the prodigy, Ava, was saying, pointing to a whiteboard covered in complex math, is stuck in the 19th century. Firms pay $300 an hour for junior lawyers to do work that AI can handle in minutes. I nodded, sipping my terrible, lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug. I didn't care about the quality of the coffee. I cared about the solution. Show me the demo, I said. Ava's eyes lit up. She navigated to her massive monitor. Traditional research involves 3 junior lawyers spending 40 hours combing databases. The client gets billed $36,000 for keyword searches. The screen showed a clean, beautiful interface. She typed a complex query. The results popped up instantly, a curated, weighted analysis of precedent, complete with confidence ratings. This is genuinely impressive, I admitted. Most tech demos are snake oil. This solved a real, multi-million-dollar problem. We don't want to replace lawyers, Ava explained passionately. We want to make them efficient. They should be doing strategy and legal thinking, the human stuff, not endless document review. I surveyed the workspace. 6 developers, cheap desks, whiteboards covered with intense thinking. This was a real startup. Lean, focused, and built by people who cared more about solving problems than networking. What's your current funding situation? I asked. Her excitement faded slightly. We've been bootstrapping. We have enough runway for maybe 3 more months. She shrugged, trying to sound casual about potential failure. Then we either find investors, or we go back to working for other people's dreams. I told her I knew her background. MIT, Google, a successful legal tech acquisition. She was brilliant. Tell me about your team, I asked. They are the best engineers I've ever worked with, she insisted. They could all go to Google or Facebook tomorrow for twice the money. But they're here because they believe in building something that matters. That was the key. Dominic built a vanity project. Ava was building a solution. What do you need to scale? Realistically, $10 million for 18 months. $15 million would let us expand faster. I looked at the clean, intuitive design on the whiteboard. Ava, I said, what if I wrote you a check for $15 million right now? 45% equity, board seat, but full operational control stays with you. Her expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and then a cautious wonder. I'd say you're either the best angel investor in New York or you're running a very elaborate con. I laughed, a real full sound. No con, just a guy who knows a good investment when he sees one. I pulled out my checkbook and wrote a check for $15 million to Lint Technologies LLC. It was the profit I made from selling Kane Dynamics. Money reinvested in something worthy. Welcome to the big leagues, I said, handing her the check. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was building something real. 3 days later, I was sitting across from Lai in a quiet Upper East Side cafe. She had finally agreed to meet, no doubt because her entire financial existence remained a wasteland. She looked slightly better, but the exhaustion was etched beneath her makeup. She nervously fidgeted with her coffee cup. You've been thinking? I asked. Some. She wrapped her hands around the cup. Michael, your terms are designed to humiliate me. They are designed to correct the public record. There's a difference. You want me to publicly confess that you funded my entire education while I publicly thanked someone else? That is humiliation. That is honesty, I countered. You chose to rewrite history on Instagram. Now you choose whether to correct it voluntarily or let the financial fallout reveal the truth for you. She looked out the window for a long time. What happened to Dominic? He won't return my calls. What do you mean? He's looking for new opportunities, according to LinkedIn. What did you do to him? I almost felt sorry for her profound ignorance. She truly believed Dominic was an independent success. I didn't do anything to Dominic, I said. I just stopped doing things for him. That is cryptic, Michael. Kane Dynamics was my company, lie? 90% ownership. Dominic was a very well-paid employee playing CEO because I liked his business plan. Her coffee cup crashed onto the saucer. That's impossible. He built that company from nothing. He had the vision. I had the capital. All the seed funding, the operating expenses, the office leases, it all came from my personal portfolio. I showed her the wire transfer records. She stared at the documents, her face utterly defeated. Why would you fund his company? Because my wife asked me to help her friend who was struggling. You said he was brilliant and needed someone to believe in him. The pieces finally clicked. The realization was physically painful to watch. Oh my God. So when I thanked him for sponsoring my education, I was thanking him for spending your money on my tuition, while you were spending your money on his business. A financial Russian nesting doll of irony, I agreed. Michael, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. You never bothered to ask. You just assumed your brilliant boyfriend built his own empire, and you were happy to let everyone think he was your sugar daddy instead of me. She put her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking. The public statement, I said, pulling out the draft. Let's make sure the wording is just right. She looked up at me, red-eyed. You are really going to make me do this? You are going to do this because it's the truth, and because the alternative is watching me spend the next 5 years proving in court that you committed fraud by misrepresenting your financial backing to employers. I slid the draft across. Read it out loud. Make it sound natural. She struggled through the original text. Too formal, I corrected her. Sounds like a hostage video. Try it like something you'd actually post. For an hour, we refined the wording until it was conversational, yet contained every necessary admission. When does this go live? She asked. Tonight. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And you will email it to all the legal industry publications that covered your graduation. This is going to destroy my reputation. Your reputation was built on a lie. I am giving you the opportunity to correct it before someone else digs it up. She folded the statement and put it in her purse, handling it like toxic waste. And after this, after I publicly humiliate myself, after this, you and Dominic are free to go build whatever life you want, just not with my funding and not with my name attached to your success. She stood to leave. For what it's worth, I really didn't mean for things to happen this way. I know, I said, but they did happen this way, and now we all live with it. She walked out without looking back. I ordered another espresso. Ava had just texted me photos of her team celebrating the funding. A real celebration for actual achievement. By tomorrow morning, the entire legal community would know the truth about Ly Thompson. I was actually looking forward to reading the comments. 6 months later, I was in my new apartment on the Upper West Side, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, sunlight streaming in. No ridiculously expensive designer nonsense. Just a calm, normal place. And I felt a genuine, quiet contentment for the first time in years. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. It was fast, clean, and exactly per the terms I dictated. Ly signed everything. Her lawyer must have warned her that fighting me would be a guaranteed financial disaster. She moved to Portland, working for a nonprofit legal aid clinic, helping low-income families. The irony was sweet. She was finally helping people who genuinely needed a lawyer they couldn't afford, after having her own financial reality check. She sent me a letter last month, handwritten. I finally understand the difference between prestige and value, she wrote. I'm sorry it took losing everything to make me realize it. I kept the letter. Not a memento, but closure. Dominic landed on his feet, barely. He's at a mid-tier firm in Chicago, doing corporate compliance, a soul-crushing job after running his own company. His LinkedIn profile now reads Senior Associate. The industry occasionally mentions his name as a cautionary tale. My phone buzzed. Ava, just closed the Morrison Industries deal, $2.3 million annual contract. Drinks at 6. I smiled. Absolutely. My treat. Lint Technologies was a soaring success. They had major clients, opened new offices, and VCs were lining up for their Series B. Ava was on the cover of Legal Tech magazine. She had earned it. I now spent my time on things that mattered. Guest lecturing at Columbia, mentoring real startups, serving on Lint's board, watching brilliant people build a legacy. The apartment was peaceful. No expensive art to impress guests. No evidence of the life I tried to build with someone who only wanted to consume. Just sunlight, good coffee, and the deep satisfaction of knowing I had truly won. I hadn't won by destroying them. I had won by forcing them to face the truth of their choices. I had won by freeing myself from a relationship built on transaction instead of trust. I had won because I was investing in people and projects that deserved to succeed. I was living a life that was finally mine. My phone buzzed again. Ava, change of plan. Whole team wants to celebrate on that new rooftop spot in Brooklyn. You in? I looked around my normal apartment. I'm in, I texted back. See you there. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. 6 months ago, I thought standing in front of that locked venue door was the end of my life. Turns out, it was just the prologue. After funding every luxury, every degree, and every ambition for years, how do you truly reconcile the emotional cost of betrayal with a $195 million financial victory? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments.